we are in the second episode of Tuned In with David Herbert, and I'm David. And our guest today is Brant Taylor, cellist of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Thank you so much, Brant. And how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is great. We're going to discuss a little bit about Brant and his how he came to the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and a little bit about your background. I printed out your just from the CSO.org site, cso.org. You started at the age of 8.
That's correct.
All right, good so far. And then professionally, I have you were from 1992 to 1997. You were cellist of the award-winning Everest Quartet.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, my first love was chamber music, so I actually thought that was the direction my career was going to head after college, and it did for a while. But if you try to plan too far ahead, you're probably just going to be wrong. So
all avenues were open at that point, but you really your big love is chamber music.
It's continued to be so. Yeah.
And you have at least one solo recital each year, right? And do you have any upcoming solo recitals or chamber music performances that you would like to plug to the video?
I wish I could say yes. I actually have just finished a huge, very busy period that involved a lot of activity during the time that the orchestra was off at the end of the summer. I was playing a bunch of chamber music at a few different festivals, and then I went to North Carolina to play a great concerto by David Ott, a contemporary American composer. And so just got back from that. I played on the Music Now 20th anniversary concert last week, and have been sort of looking forward to this time just to relax a bit and get ready for the upcoming tour.
So you've been incredibly busy and saving your energy for the beginning of the season, and I know how much concentration and dedication physically and mentally that takes to start the season with our music director. You've heard of this guy, Maestro Muti?
I have.
Yeah, he's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, he makes everybody sit up a little straighter, makes the orchestra sound its best.
Maestro Muti is our music director, and he's basically in charge of everything that happens, ultimately responsible for everything that happens musically with our institution. You and I share something in common. We were at the New World Symphony.
That's
right.
right.
You were there for 1 year?
That's right, yeah. A little less than a year. When my quartet that you mentioned decided to go our separate ways, as you said, all roads were open, and I went down to Miami to visit some friends who at the time were playing in the orchestra, and it just so happened that they had a member of their cello section leave because he'd won a job in the Kansas City Symphony. So there was a cello opening right at the time that I happened to
good timing
cross paths with New World, and so
New World is in Miami Beach. It's in a sort of an apprentice type orchestra, and it's great training, great to get experience playing in an orchestra there. Like I said, I was there for a couple of years, and I certainly learned a lot. One of the goals after you get into New World is to get out of New World and get into try to get into a professional orchestra, which you did with the St. Louis Symphony.
That's right. Yeah.
So you were in New World a rather short time then.
I was. I would have been happy to stay longer because I enjoyed the people and I enjoyed living in Miami. And as you say, it's a wonderful organization that, sort of bridges the gap between finishing school and landing your first professional gig. So I was happy to pass through there.
I love St. Louis. I'm from Missouri, so that was the orchestra I grew up with. And I went to school there, so I love that.
I would have loved staying there longer as well, but the opening came up in the CSO.
Exactly, with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. So how long were you in St. Louis? Very long time? Or
no, just one season.
Wow. You were in hot demand, right?
Well, there's some luck involved in winning any audition, but I suppose I typify the maxim that I try to bestow upon my students, which is that playing chamber music is actually the best preparation to win an orchestra job.
Because of the breathing and the intonation and everything that goes into making music on such an intimate, very high level.
Exactly, yeah. Any chamber group, but string quartet as an example, is a sort of artistic democracy, and so this quartet I was in, we didn't we were just fresh out of school, so we had to figure out a lot of things on our own, sorting out all the various voices and such that we were told in school. You get told a lot of things when you're in school, and when you have to figure things out on your own, really resonates in a way that's different when somebody else just says, play it this way or play it that way. So it also gives you a worldview on the composers that are the same composers that we play in the orchestra. So for me, I knew all of the Beethoven string quartets. So when somebody put the Fifth Symphony in front of me to play it in audition, even if I didn't know the piece, I had some idea of the composer and the style and the unique, his unique voice. So that's mainly what I mean. It just helps you listen to yourself better. In an orchestra, I play a different role than you do, and I play in a big section. So
it makes total sense, because I make all my students listen to the Hammerklavier Sonata and the late Beethoven string quartets. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time. Even though we're just playing tonic and dominant. So it's like, but if you don't have the concept of Beethoven, then the essence is really from those late sonatas, I think that's the pinnacle that's sort of the Rolls Royce of all music right there, the Beethoven string quartet.
I'm right with you
I'm
on
getting
that.
chills talking about these things.
Yeah.
So tell us about when you were hired and who was music director at the time, and do you have any fond memories of that? Was it a long process, or was it like a moment where?
That's a good question. Daniel Barenboim was the music director at that time. This was in 1998, so this is my 20th season with the orchestra.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. And my audition was maybe not atypical, but a little unusual in that the prelim happened and then 3 months elapsed before the final. So there was a lag period there during which I knew that I was a finalist, but I needed to sort of keep the repertoire and the list fresh and ready to go.
And I imagine the reason why you had to wait so long is because the music director needs to be present for any final hire.
Yeah.
So Daniel Barenboim needed to be in the building, listening to you play.
That's right.
And saying, that's the one.
That's right.
Okay.
But
Had you met him before?
I had not met him before, and actually I've sort of gotten over my embarrassment in saying so, but when I walked out on stage to play my preliminary audition, I had still never heard the Chicago Symphony play live at that point, and I had never seen the inside of Orchestra Hall.
Wow.
And I knew the orchestra through recordings that I'd heard, but that was basically it.
Wow.
So again, the idea, there's an audition myth, one of many out there, that you have to be incredibly familiar with the recorded legacy of the orchestra you're auditioning for and with their unique style and such, and I suppose I fly in the face of that.
Well, they chose you obviously out of your own merits, and you didn't try to second guess. You just gave yourself, and it was the right fit for them, and it ended up being the right fit for you. Just the way you performed and that day, and your preparation, your thoughtfulness and attention to detail really resonated with the people that were listening to you to make those kind of decisions.
I've heard a lot of auditions from the other side of the screen now, and now I can see why what you're saying is true. If you please everybody or try to put something out there that will please other people, by definition, you're going to be outside of your own comfort zone and not speaking with your voice. So,
exactly. I felt that at my audition, I knew there was only two possibilities. They were really going to love it, or they were really going to hate it. There was no gray area. That's always very helpful. You must have had the same kind of experience, or you just prepared the way you felt, and
exactly. Yeah, and I certainly came to know about Mr. Barenboim after I was in the orchestra. That almost the entirety of what he cared about. Obviously, somebody has to be able to control their instrument well, but he just wanted somebody to be inside the music and to be thinking and to take a sophisticated viewpoint on whatever they're playing.
Super.
Didn't matter. He was probably more pleased to hear it in a way that wouldn't be the way he.
And he's a consummate chamber musician as well.
That's right.
Very, very, very top with the pianist, incredible pianist.
Yeah, I learned a lot from him.
Do you mind if we talk about our upcoming tour? 9 concerts and 2 rehearsals in 8 cities, including tomorrow's rehearsal, over 14 days. 3 different programs spanning 226 years. Here's the repertoire that we're playing. 3 different programs. Program number 1 is Rossini Overture to William Tell. which is, by the way, according to our music director, not the Lone Ranger theme, although it was used for the Lone Ranger section of it. And he gets really, he doesn't like that association, so we won't. Okay. Well, it's a beautiful piece. It starts out with the cello section.
It's one of the most famous cello excerpts there is.
Yeah, it starts out. Then we have the organic, then the intermission, and then Bruckner Symphony No. 4, which is a really tiny, kind of like little piece, it's gargantuan.
It's one of the tinier Bruckner symphonies.
Yes, that's true. But anyway, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. That's program number 1. Bruckner was written in 1874. The program number 2 is Schubert Symphony No. 8, 1822. Mozart Clarinet Concerto, featuring our principal clarinetist, Stephen Williamson. That's the 1791. And Schumann Symphony No. 2, which was written in 1846. He was going through some depression, and took him a while to finish that one, but it began, I think, in 1846. And then program number 3 is Brahms Symphony No. 3, 1883, and intermission, then Brahms Symphony No. 2, written in 1877. Now, I know the answer to this question, but why would it be Brahms Symphony No. 3 first, and then intermission, and then Brahms Symphony No. 2?
I suppose one could program it either way, and Muti's the type of conductor that actually, I wouldn't have been surprised if he'd wanted to play them in chronological order, but number 3 sort of ends in a little bit of a whisper, whereas number 2 has an incredibly triumphant ending that maybe makes a more, certainly a more dramatic ending to a concert.
Actually, Brahms Symphony No. 3 is my favorite of the Brahms, of the 4 symphonies, but it's the least often performed because of that. Because it's hard to program. It is just a masterpiece, but it does end very quietly. So, as far as like getting an enthusiastic response from the audience, it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I've always thought it was. To me, it would make a great first half of any program as well. And I'm surprised at how much less frequently we play it than all the others, just because the ending.
I just love it, especially the 2 movements where there's no timpani. I just get to sit there and enjoy it. Well,
my favorite moment in the Bruckner 4th is actually a moment where the cellos don't play at all. It's in the development of the first movement, and we just get to sit there and listen to this incredibly beautiful passage where the brass chorale comes in eventually, and it's great when you don't play, and you get to
rest your arm, I imagine, too. Right?
Yeah, you can sort of listen to the orchestra the way you would if you were in the audience.
And it's incredible to be in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, to hear all the details, like being in the middle of it is an incredible experience. This last week I was in the middle of the second violins, and wow, it was just, I could hear all the tactile information on the plucking the strings and the hair on the bow, on the strings, and just the articulation. It was so much fun to be there. So you're really up front a lot of the times, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So you get.
I don't know how you feel about touring, but for me, it's one of the best parts of the job, not only to share this great music with people around the country and around the world, but to try the new concert halls. And if I'm interviewing you for a second now, do you find it enjoyable or challenging to try to find the right sound in constantly changing environments?
Yeah, it's very enjoyable. It's extremely challenging, especially because I'm dealing with other things going on with humidity and heat, light, and things like that directly affect the intonation of the instrument. So it's it's definitely challenging, but it's a lot of fun, especially when we play in some of these halls where, well, I would say our hall is really great. I would say it doesn't hurt us, it doesn't help us, but so it's kind of neutral. But I know that we have to work really hard for the sound, so it's always fun to play in a place where you can just almost breathe on the instrument, and they just say, wow, I sound good. That's always nice. All right, back to fun facts. 34 hours of total rehearsal time were needed for all 3 programs. We have 7.5 hours of total music of the 3 programs, the 7.5 hours, and 23 hours of actual performance time. So on the tour's almost 2 weeks long, we're on stage, well, plus the 2 rehearsals, about only 27 hours. That's a pretty good deal, right?
Wow. Yeah. That's a fun fact that I wouldn't have.
Yeah. Yes. 56 million total notes will be performed. I just made that up. That's fake news. I wasn't about to count all of
That's
that.
fuzzy math.
Okay, yeah. 5,000 total miles traveled.
Uh-huh.
One very large truck with all our instruments. We were talking about my instruments, your instruments.
Right.
4 flights, and okay, you'll never get this one. How many bus rides in over 13 days? 4 flights and...
Ooh, if we include buses to and from concerts,
Yeah.
I would say maybe between 20 and 25 bus
Yeah,
rides.
you should go on Prices Right. Totally. 28, I counted them.
Okay.
And I might have missed a couple. 28, so 4 flights and 28 bus rides over 13 days.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. How do you practice on the tour?
Well,
Because you don't have access to your instrument all the time, right?
we don't have access to our instrument all the time, and by that we're probably quite similar in that because the celli, like the basses, are too cumbersome to actually bring on the planes with the orchestra when we travel. They go in the large cargo shipment that our stagehands take and gets mostly bussed, I think, from place to place. So during those periods when the cargo is being moved from one place to another, obviously we don't have our instruments. So I solve that in 2 ways. One is by making careful note of when I will have access to the instrument, and sometimes I will go to the hall and practice there on a day off, or I will actually bring my instrument home after a concert if the next day is free, and practice with a very strong mute on in the hotel room because I don't want to make a lot of noise in the hotel. So the other way that I can get around that is with a practice cello. Believe it or not, this is a cello. It fits in an overhead compartment on an airplane, so I can take it with me, unlike a regular cello. And when you open the box, you can see what's inside here, and all the components are in here. So this is obviously the neck and the fingerboard of the cello. This outside piece becomes the body of the instrument, so you end up attaching this somewhat like this, and there's a bridge, and all of these little pieces in here. Basically, everything that you need to touch on a cello to play it, and nothing that you don't need. So obviously it doesn't sound the same as a regular cello. It sounds a lot quieter because there's no hollow shell to amplify the sound, but it's incredibly useful, and you can actually get good practicing done on it when you don't have access to your regular instrument on tour.
What are you looking forward to most on this upcoming tour? Any special places or?
I just enjoy because we tour internationally so much, I enjoy the domestic tours just for the change of location. As I mentioned earlier, normally the chances are greater we're going to places where we have friends and colleagues that come to our concerts that may not get to hear our orchestra very often. So we can sort of hang out with them after the concerts.
Yeah, I went to school in Kansas City at UMKC. I started there.
Oh, I didn't realize
and they
that.
didn't have this beautiful concert hall that they have now. So they have, we're performing October 11th in Kansas City. And we have, we're playing in Berkeley 3 concerts, 13th, 14th, and 15th.
Never played in that hall, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, me. Oh, I did.
Did
I
you?
played with Metallica. Yes,
Wow.
yeah. They did a recording with us. It was called S&M, Symphony and Metallica.
I remember
Get the
when that
double
came
name.
out. I didn't realize that you didn't record it in...
No, we did it
San
at,
Francisco.
yeah, so I actually did. Yeah, I just remember that. That was
Okay.
my one, that's probably my most famous moment as a musician. Fortunately or unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. October 15th, 22nd in Los Angeles at the Disney Hall.
Mhm.
And then before that are some dates in Palm Springs, or
Yep. Palm Desert.
and
Costa Mesa.
Costa Mesa and Santa Barbara. So it's Kansas City, and then we're just going to take over California and melt some faces. I
A
think.
land, sea, and air assault on California.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Do you have any funny or interesting CSO tour story that you would like to share?
Well, there's memorable and then there's funny. I suppose let's go with funny.
Okay.
There was a time in Vienna where a bunch of us got the bright idea that we would rent Segways and take a tour of the city.
I was hoping you would, because I don't know this story fully well.
And I think there were 10 or 11 of us, and unlike what I've seen here in Chicago, where when you take a Segway tour, you're very orderly and you're in a line and there's a tour guide and everybody follows the person in front of them. There we just signed a form and they basically gave us the Segways and it was up to us to navigate the streets of Vienna. So we, at some point during this maybe 2-hour period, 4 of the people in this group managed to dump themselves off their segways.
Oh, no.
2 of whom injured themselves in such a way that they were unable to continue with the tour.
Severely, it's not funny.
No, and two escaped, narrowly escaped injury. And so
whose bright idea was it?
Well,
Who said, "Hey, we should all get on segways"?
nobody may remember that because
Okay.
the subsequent events have dwarfed whose idea it was in our memory. So now we can all look back on it and thank goodness that they serve alcohol on international flights, because I think in one case this person was using it as an anesthetic against
There was some
fractured arm.
severe injury. Well, I'm glad everybody's okay now, though.
Everybody's fine.
Good.
Yes.
And what about a favorite concert? If you're like maybe something maybe something that you and I have shared together with Maestro Muti.
Wow. Okay. So the first thing I think of, and I'm just sort of shooting off ad lib, would be the Otello that we took to Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
We did all those 3 Shakespeare operas.
Yeah.
Otello, Macbeth, and Falstaff. And Otello was the first one
That
we
was
did.
the first one, yeah.
And we've done a lot of Verdi and a lot of Italian music with Maestro Muti, but and he does it always incredibly well, but even among what we've done, this was a moment where I thought, I cannot imagine this being ever done any better than this. He just knew the music so well and was able to get the orchestra and the singers behind him in a way that was just amazing to me.
I'm completely on board with that, and with the Verdi repertoire, all the repertoire that we do with him. That's very special to do that. I like when we played the all the operas, and especially the Verdi Requiem. That was the one piece I heard the guy wailing on the bass drum. My parents brought me to a orchestra concert, and they were playing the Verdi Requiem, and I was a pianist at the time, and this guy, dum, boom, dum, and I said, I want to do that. Whatever that is, I want to do that. And I've never gotten to do. I haven't been able. So I've just been playing symphony. So I still haven't been able to play the bass drum on it. Maybe someday. We should all do it. Yeah.
My dream will never happen. I don't even know if I've told you this before. My dream is to play timpani in Beethoven 9 sometime.
Oh, that's easy. Oh,
I don't have the skills.
Oh man, 20 minutes. I'll have you playing Beethoven 9. No problem. All right, well, it's really awesome. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and follow on our YouTube channel, and please follow all the musicians of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra on our Facebook page, Musicians of the Chicago Symphony. And that's about it. Well, we have one thing, as our sort of tradition. I'm going to give Brant a drummer joke, and he's going to give. There aren't any cello jokes. Can you believe it?
They're hard
but
to
he
find.
found one.
I did.
He found one. So
because we're just the most well-adjusted members of the orchestra.
Okay. Do you want to go first? I'll give you my symphony joke. Okay,
Sounds
it's down
good.
there at the bottom. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to read it out loud.
How do you tell if the stage is level?
I don't know. How do you tell?
Because the drummer is drooling from both sides of his mouth. Excellent.
Why are concert intermissions just 20 minutes?
I don't know, David.
Oh, it's so you don't have to retrain the cellists. Oh, see, get it? Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for